Financial Modeling, Topic 5, Section 6, Matrix Operations and VBA Arrays. I'll first review something I did in an earlier topic, and that is using matrix multiplication and accepting arrays as inputs or parameters. So this function here is called port mean, and basically what it does, it takes a column of returns entered as a parameter and a column of weights entered as a parameter. And notice I have as range here, even though that's just an optional statement. It's just telling the user that the cell's expected, or that input is expected to be more than one cell. And then we simply do a matrix multiplication. Application.mmult, application.transpose weights and returns. And remember from the topic in which we covered matrix algebra, I need to transpose the weights column, turn it into a row, because you can only multiply a row vector times a column vector for the matrix multiplication to work. And also notice if I'm going to use most of Excel's built-in functions like mmult and transpose, I have to start them with application dot. So going to Excel, I can input this function by simply entering the function where I put returns. I'll put in the 3 returns. For weights, I'll put in the 3 weights, and then I'll hit enter, and it does basically a sum product of these weights and these returns. Now let's talk about referring to arrays that you've input as a parameter inside the program. So here's another program. This program is called PVX. It has 2 parameters, cash flows as range. In this case, it's just going to be 3 random cash flows I make up, and R, a discount rate. And what this program is going to do is going to take the present value of a series of cash flows in a column, which are entered as a parameter. And here's what we're going to do. There's a couple new items here I want to show you. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new variable, call it n, and I'm going to put in the value of n, cashflows.rows.count. Now, .rows.count is a VBA object, and it refers to the first item, which is cash flows. Now, cash flows, in this case, is simply whatever the user puts in a parameter. So cash flows will be this 3 by 1, 3 rows by 1 column input in this situation. So n is equal to cashflows.rows.count. There are 3 rows, so n in this program using these parameters will take on the value of 3. So I figured out there are 3 cash flows. I then say for I equal 1 to 3, n in this case, next I. So it's going to execute this statement 3 times, setting I equal to 1 to 2 to 3. So PVX equals PVX plus. Remember, that's the aggregation code. When you see a name equal a name plus, PVX equals PVX plus cash flows I1. Now, cash flows is an array entered as a parameter in VBA. Cash flows 1-1 is going to refer to the first cash flow, first row, first column of cash flow. It's going to be $100 over 1 plus R to the 1. It's going to be $90.91. Next I, PVX equals PVX, which now has $90 in it, plus cash flows 2-1, which is going to be $150 over 1 plus R squared. It's going to add $123 to $90. Next I, it's going to set I equal to 3 and take PVX, which now has about, $213 in it so far. It's going to then add to it cash flows 3-1, $200 over 1 plus R cubed. And then it's going to run its course. Did 1, 2, 3. It's going to end, and the functions end it. And PVX now has the value of the summation of these 3 cash flows, which is 365. So looking at the program inside Excel, I can put PVX right here, user defined PVX. There's my dialog box. I'm going to put in the 3 cash flows as the parameter for cash flows. I'm going to put in the R as the discount rate, and there's my 365. Now I could have also just done a sum here using the spreadsheet, but now I no longer have to use this area in the spreadsheet. I can simply do a program. So that's how we refer to items inside, arrays which we input as a parameter, how we can refer to any single item in there using the row column identifier. Now I will give you also a little trick. If this parameter is simply a row vector or column vector, I could have written it with just I instead of (1). Now I actually like to do the (1) because that's telling the user of this program that actually looks at the code that these are row indexes and this must be a column vector. So let's talk about doing a little more advanced work in VBA. Let's actually create an array in the program. In other words, the program is going to build an array and populate it with data. It's not going to just get the array from a parameter that the user inputs. However, there's a couple confusing things about creating these VBA arrays within the program. The first thing you need to do is all arrays that are created within the program must be declared even if you don't have option explicit stated at the top of the module. And how you have to declare all new arrays created in the program is you need to actually have two statements. You have to say dim, give that array any name, and then open close bracket. And then later, before you start using the array, you must redim it, use the same name, and then specify the size or the dimensions of the new array. So you might say at this point that it's a 1x3 or something like that. So you might specify it as a 1x3, or maybe even use variables to do that. So that's the first confusing things. When we create arrays inside the program, in other words, not just inputting them as parameters, we do have to dim them, and we have to dim them using two statements, a dim and redim. The second thing that's very confusing with creating VBA arrays, if I don't specify that all arrays within VBA start with row 1 and column 1, it's going to assume a base of 0. In other words, if you had a simple 1x1 matrix, a 2x2 matrix set up inside VBA, and you want to refer to this first one, normally we'd say that's item 1-1, first row, first column. However, in VBA, they have a base of 0, meaning that first item is actually 0-0, not 1-1. If you do not want to have a base 0 for your VBA arrays that you build inside the program, you have to give it a special code or item at the top of your module. You have to state option base 1. That'll convert all arrays created in the program to a base 1 so that the first row, first column is the first item of the array. So in my programs, I always start every module with option base 1. So this is going to be, even if I have 10 VBA programs in my module, at the top of the module I'm going to have the statement option base 1. And now here's a program, a very simple program that demonstrates how to create a VBA array within a program. This program has one parameter. First of all, the program is called prices to returns. It has one parameter, which is going to be an array of prices the user inputs from a column. The output of this function is going to be an array. And the function is going to calculate the periodic return. So 150 minus 100 over 100 is a 50% return. 100 minus 150 over 150 is minus 33% return. 200 minus 100 over 100 is a 100% return, and 150 minus 200 over 200 is a minus 25% return. This function is actually going to calculate all these values within the function, and it's going to be entered across an array. Let's actually go ahead and insert the program, and then I'll show you how it works. So here's the parameters, or the one parameter. Here's the actual test data to make sure we know what the number should be. And now here I'm going to enter this program. I'm going to enter it across an array. In other words, I'm going to select this 4 by 1 area, 4 rows by 1 column. I'm going to insert a program, user defined. It's called prices to returns. These are the prices, and now since I'm entering this function formula across an array, I'm going to hit Control Shift Enter. And looks like I got 0, so let's see what happened. I'm going to try that one more time. Prices to returns. Got my prices here. And Control Shift Enter. Change that to a %. It is not working. I'm going to go to my VBA. Let's see what happened. I'm going to find my prices to returns. It's in there, and I want to make sure, oh, I do not have option base 1 at the top of my module. So let's just pretend I made this example to find an error. So look, I'm going to type option base 1 at the top of my module now. Let's now see if that works. I'm going to enter my function again, Control Shift Enter, and now it works. I'm going to hit enter those as percentages. So let's go back to the program, and then we're going to try to understand why it didn't work with option base 1 omitted. So let's take a look at our program. Here's our program, and it's called prices to returns. It's going to take these prices, enter it across this range, and get those values. So let's see how the program works. I'm going to create a temporary variable called temp matrix, and that's going to be a it's going to be a temporary variable name to refer to this array of these 4 returns I'm going to create in VBA. I'm going to call it temp matrix and then open close. I'm then going to determine the size of that matrix. And how I'm going to do that, I know that if I have 5 prices, I can only get 4 returns. So I'm going to count how many prices are in the parameter n.prices.rows.count. .rows.count is a VBA object that counts the number of rows to whatever variable this is. So this n is going to take on the value of 5 when the user inputs those 5 prices. I'm then going to redim my temp matrix. Again, this is going to be temp matrix right here. I'm going to redim temp matrix as a 4 by 1 by taking n-1 and 1. So I'm going to specify that this temp matrix is going to be a 4 by 1 because prices were entered in a 5 by 1. Okay, all that work was to simply create this blank workspace called temp matrix. Temp matrix. So I now have this blank workspace called temp matrix, and it's set up as a 4 by 1 where this is this is 1 first row, first column, second row, first column, third row, first column, fourth row, first column. So I have a 4 by 1 matrix set up in VBA. Now I'm going to populate this matrix using this for loop. For I equal 1 to 4, temp matrix I, 1 equal prices I plus 1, 1 minus prices I1 divided by prices I1. So it's going to set I equal to 1. Temp matrix 1, 1, that's going to be this value right here, equals prices 2, 1, I plus 1, 1, that's the 150, minus prices I1, that's 1, 1, that's 100, divided by prices 1, 1, which is 100. So it's going to take the second price minus the first price divided by the first price and put it in 1, 1. Next I, set I equal to 2. Prices 2, 1. It's going to now do this one here. It's going to be the third price minus the second price over the second price, done. Next I, it's going to fill in temp matrix 3, 1. as the fourth price minus the third price over the third price. Next I, it's going to do the fourth one, and then it's done. It's populated temp matrix with these 4 values. Last step, prices to returns. Again, you always have to put something in the function name. You have to put a value inside the function name. We're going to say prices to returns, which is the function name, equals temp matrix end function. So that's how this program is going to work. I'm going to first figure out the size of the new matrix. I'm going to figure out that it has to be a 4 by 1. I'm going to redim my temp matrix as a 4 by 1. And then I'm going to do a loop from 1 equals, for I equals 1 to 4. And I'm going to fill in temp matrix 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1. And then I'm going to put inside temp prices to returns, I'm going to put in the values that are in temp matrix that were just calculated here. And there's the end of my function. So in this topic, a very important topic, we talked about how to do simple matrix operations in VBA, and more importantly, how to refer to array items, input as parameters, and also how to build arrays using the dim and redim and the option base 1 items.